Howdy, fuckers. Welcome to what used to be the Rev Mel Show. Rev Mel, well, let's say couldn't be here today. I'm Entropy. I have annexed her show, as I'm wont to do. Later on, there'll be a fun little giveaway item. She's actually duct tape in the trunk of a 78 Plymouth somewhere in the North Valley. And later during the show, I'm going to intersperse little clues on where you can find her. And if you do find her, you get to keep the 78 Plymouth plus a bag of Snickers that I have left in the trunk with her. You know, survival rations, that kind of thing.
What are you doing?
Nothing, really. Just doing a show here. Hi.
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 Welcome. It's not the Entropy Show.
All right, I'm going to give it back for now.
Thank you.
We'll call it alone.
Welcome to the Rev Mel Show on TSRnetwork.com, where real people talk about real sex with really kinky people. And my board guy canceled. He's got the flu. He's not feeling good. So I had to...
He's an overboard guy.
he's like sick. So if you guys are in the chat room, there are people that are already in the chat room. Let me call them out. We have Art. We have Pig Carrie.
Hey.
We have the erotic typewriter.
The erotic typewriter.
Yeah.
Is that good?
Ooh, does it moan?
I don't know.
Oh.
It's got really soft touch keys though.
Pig Carrie goes, woo, woo. And they go, oh. Yeah, so, hey, listen, if you guys, I can't be handling the chat room over there. I'm going to be handling it here. See, watch. There
So
you
how does
are.
it get big like that? That's fucking weird.
Special effects.
It's got a higher budget than I fucking thought there, man. That's impressive.
Oh, that's funny. But I can't be handling the chat room, but I'll be watching it, monitoring, making sure if there's any questions that you guys need to ask. And I won't know how many people are actually watching the show because of the fact that I'm not at the main. I may get up in the middle and go over there and take a peek. Who knows? Anything can happen on the show.
We'll just assume there's like 12,000 people watching. I think that's a pretty safe estimate.
We get pretty. What we do is we get lots of big numbers afterwards.
Yeah.
On YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
And we get 15,000 for one show.
No shit, really?
Yeah, I was
wow,
like
I was
shocked.
kidding.
No.
I thought I was throwing a crazy number out there.
No. It's
Because
yeah.
remember, what was the number when it was like, okay, if we get that many, I get to whoop
three.
your ass.
If we got
It was
three.
three.
if we got three when we were at the old studio. But Miss Cassie did a show on the Symbian.
Oh, okay.
And everybody must be wanting to know about the Symbian, think she's going to get on it. And at the very end, she does, but she doesn't really get on it. She
doesn't turn it on.
Yeah. Well, we turned it on, and then you got my hand going in there going, you know.
Yeah. Well, if you turned it on, you wouldn't be able to hear anything else. Those things sound like a fucking like commuter plane getting ready to take off.
The erotic typewriter says, I write terrible erotica.
That's kind of awesome, though.
Yeah.
Especially if you're trying to write terrible. There's nothing more fun than really just flying something into the ground as hard as you can.
Did you write 50 Shades of Shit? That was horrible erotica.
That's a real thing?
50 Shades of Grey?
Oh, no, 50 Shades of Shit. Never mind.
No, I call it 50
Okay.
Shades. Yeah, that we're not gonna. But Art is in the chat room. There's other people. Hi, Art. Nice to see you.
Hi, Art. Hi.
Art, you know the guy with no. Oh no, he's probably gonna not watch my show anymore.
What's that?
The guy with no legs and no arms hanging on a wall.
Oh, hey.
Art, hey. So we're gonna get wild and crazy. So if.
Oh, I don't know. I've nobody mentioned wild and or crazy. You can have one, but perhaps I don't know if I'm ready to. I'm not ready if I'm ready for that kind of commitment. Putting out both.
I love this guy. I have been. I gave him an opportunity to either stay at home and do it via webcam. He goes, no, he wanted to come because he wanted to give me a big hug, and so
That's right.
he walked in, he grabbed me, gave me a big hug, and I'm used to him with his really long hair, and he's got a mohawk.
My what?
Yeah, your long hair.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, now he's got a mohawk.
Mm.
But I will be looking at the chat room here. I'm not going to be ignoring my guest. It
Yeah.
may look like
If she's
it.
looking down, is her like trying to figure out what you mugs are saying there.
And you know what? I don't have my real glasses on. So I really can't see this very well. So if I mispronounce your name or anything. And if you are watching the show and you're not in the chat room, I will say this repeatedly during the show. Please come in the chat room. Please go on FetLife, go on Facebook, go on Twitter. Tweet this out to all of your friends because it is going to get wacky and crazy because that's just, well, we roll.
And if you're in the chat room, you can ask wacky questions, which I will field any you throw out there on any topic because that is what I do when I'm not doing other things.
Well, you've got, I haven't seen him in a long time. The last time you were on is
It's been a couple of years.
Yeah, when we had the studio.
Yeah, it was like early 2012.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was before we closed the studio down.
Yeah, fortunately, nothing has happened since then, so, you know.
A lot has happened. A lot has happened. And but let's give a little basic history. What for the people that are new to TSR Network, new to maybe the lifestyle, they really don't know the icon that we have here presented in front of us. Because
somebody hiding back there?
I mean, he has some remarkable stories. So how I'm going to ask. I've asked you these questions before. They can go back and because everything's archived.
That's fine.
So how did you get involved in BDSM? Oh, wait a minute. I gotta ask him. Oh, I already know how big his cock is.
Let's clarify. Because she's asked the question before. It's not like I was slapping her in the face with it earlier before the camera's turned on.
That's why I have my glasses on. I was like,
they used to have lenses.
Tea bags.
Well, that was later, but I'm sorry.
Darren is in the chat room. Welcome. Erotic.
The guy from Bewitched now.
I'm going to call erotic typewriter just erotic. Erotic says he makes whips. So he does more than
or perhaps E.T.
E.T.
Yeah.
Oh, E.T. We call you E.T. Yes, we're going to E.T.
You're welcome.
So,
yes.
And I'm not going to ask how big his balls are either. I'm not going to ask him if he's ever taken it up the ass. I'm not going. I've already asked these questions.
I am immune to these questions.
He's given.
I will just give you lies anyway.
He's given us the answers to these questions many times on the show.
You'll have to go back and do your homework.
That's
just
right.
Go back and check the archives.
Research.
Yes.
Whoever can find out what his answers wins.
78. Never mind.
Wins a big hug from me.
There you go.
So
hugs not included.
Hugs not included.
Never mind.
This is a non-hug zone.
Yes, we're all very serious here.
It's going to be delightful. And this is only an hour show, but you never know.
Yeah, right. This is a nominally 1 hour show. We all know it's going to go at least an hour and a half.
Well, we used to do 2-hour shows, and sometimes we'd carry it off to 3.
Yeah, I think I did a couple of those.
Yeah.
And they still seem like they were just getting started.
I know. People would watch the whole fucking 3 hours.
Well, it's because I'm just entertaining as fuck. It really just comes down to that.
I thought it was my beauty.
That too. Yeah. Somebody just went, what the heck?
My next door neighbors in the studio space.
Oh, okay.
So we got to talk about.
I thought that perhaps you had some kind of clever sound effects that you like boing or
it's our
little
audience.
Children yelling or whatever.
Lie.
Yeah.
It's our live audience.
Yeah, that's right. Audience in the broadest possible term. They're actually in the next building, but you know.
So May as well is in the chat room. Welcome. I like that name, May as well. I was born in May, so May and I have something in
There
common.
could be multiple levels of meaning there.
So let's talk about how you got started in BDSM.
Okay.
Well,
do you want the interesting bits or the when I sort of burst onto the public scene parts of the wacky story? Because the early parts of it are the usual. They're sort of the usual. Had an interest from a very young age. Watched a lot of the Batman cartoon, people getting tied up, a lot of that kind of shit. But all that's kind of standard boilerplate. We all have that same story.
See, I don't have any of those stories.
You don't really?
I have no stories of spanking people. I have no stories of dreaming about.
No tying people up with jump ropes. Or...
No, I remember that in somebody tied some kids up to a tree and there was a big stink about it, and I wondered about it. But it was like, oh my God, how could somebody do that? It was.
You tied it in.
I was never that, never. I never knew I was kinky until.
I was probably the only kid on the block that took prisoners when we played war games,
So you had it's in your genes.
Sure.
Oh, he doesn't have genes. He has a kill time. Woo! If I dropped my iPad and went like this, I could see.
And it wouldn't be the first time you'd have tried either.
I always try to look up men's.
That's true.
That's
true.
Yeah. In fact, I think I've taken a camera to a couple of them.
She eschews the common mirrors on shoes and things like that, and goes with technology.
It's all about the cock. What can I say? Oh, I lost my. Where is
The
it?
entire chat room has now vanished.
The chat room has vanished. There
Become
it is.
bored and moved on to amusing cat videos and.
Batman Adam West version?
Well, yeah. I'm that old. Yeah, yeah. I mean, of course, I've watched all the other ones except for the one with the nipples. But yeah, it was the Adam West Batman that really kind of, biff, pow, bang, tying people up, dunking them in various dangerous substances.
Oh, that's the reason why.
Catwoman.
I was like, did I not hear something?
Oh, no. Yeah, it was in my earlier disclaimer, but about the formative years kind of thing.
So then, after your formative years, and and how old were you when you got laid for the very first time?
Oh God, I don't know. Probably right around 20, something like that. Yeah.
You were a late bloomer too.
I wasn't so much a late bloomer as somebody that sort of grew up in a religious context, and so it was sort of a it wasn't. It was 20 despite bewildering numbers of opportunities prior to that. And then later in life, I gave all of that the big heave-ho.
Well, I mean, I lost my virginity at 18, and all my friends already lost it. But you were 20.
Did they check behind the couch? Sometimes.
Well, Midori gave me a beautiful answer to losing her virginity.
Oh yeah, what was
you have to go.
I'll have to research it.
You have to go research it. She organized it herself.
Organized suggests multiple players in the but entirely possible.
She organized it herself. So you lost your virginity at 20.
Yeah. When
did you walk into the world of BDSM?
Probably would have been my first interactions in the sort of public-ish realm were probably in my mid-20s or so. I waited till I lost my virginity at 20, but I certainly made up for lost time soon thereafter. I think the first thing I went to was I attended one of the early Threshold Bizarre Bazaars in my probably mid-20s or so with my girlfriend at the time.
Was it over at Nob Hill?
It was somewhere. I want to say it was like somewhere near Silver Lake. Oh. Kind of like off of like Sunset.
That was before they went over to Nob Hill.
Yeah. So there was that, and then not too long after that, I fell into the sort of public performance world, semi-accidentally. There was at the time I was going to a lot of industrial music and gothic clubs and that kind of thing, and I wandered into one in Orange County called Submission. It was in Orange, California.
Behind the orange curtain.
Behind the orange curtain, where I grew up. Anyway, it was an industrial space, appropriate for an industrial club. But off to one side, in a little back room, there was a guy back there doing BDSM play with a small group of people that was there every week, and I was just enraptured by watching that, because it was all the things that you'd heard about and read about, and right there, for all to see.
Yeah.
And that guy was Master Aryn, the fucking icon and architect of the LA scene.
I finally got to interview him.
Did you?
Well, we had to do it via webcam, and it's when I really didn't know the programs that we were using. But it was
like Max Headroom.
It was a good interview, but cool. I want to have him back on again. I want to have him come to the studio.
Yeah, he's a fascinating guy.
Yeah.
But I kind of fell in with that group, and I started doing a little bit of public play there, and then that sort of eventually translated to a place called Cinematic, which was kind of like in the 90s, it was the sort of premier fetish BDSM club
on Santa Monica, West Hollywood.
Yeah, I was there were essentially 3 paid dominants there, and I was the third of the 3 for a period of time. After I left there, I sort of tried to get away from that for a while to sort of I basically wanted to go somewhere where nobody really knew me, just because I left Cinematic under not the happiest circumstances.
Well, you were a performer.
I was, well, yeah. I
was. You weren't really a real
dog. Oh no, of
you
course
were a
not.
Performer.
Yeah, no, we don't do any of that in our real lives. It was kind of funny because there was a whole parallel thing going on at Cinematic where it was all the same people, but we had this sort of other sort of group identity. It was called oh god, it'll come back to me. But we would do private parties and things like that. We would rent the dungeon space of the three sort of top doms in LA at the time all had a place together. It was Sabrina Belladonna, Isabella Sinclair, and originally it was a dom named Storm, who was from Australia, if memory serves. She retired.
So these were female dominants.
They were, yeah.
Okay.
I think she retired, and she was replaced with Ilsa Strix. So we would rent their space once every couple of months, and we would throw these all-day play parties that started at like 10 and went till like 1 in the morning, this kind of a thing.
Like 10 in the morning? Till
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, we were like doing setup at like 10 in the morning.
I kind of like that.
It was good times. I mean, not quite the epic 3-day depravity fest that Arcane used to hold up in the Bay Area. I don't know, did you ever make that to any of those?
No.
Oh god, they were fucking amazing. They started on Friday night and they went until Sunday night with no breaks in between. People would just sort of crash as need be. But there was literally play going on for 48 hours.
Oh, I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and with like all the best people that were, around at the time. Everybody just...
Yeah, I never made the cinematics because of the fact that I wasn't into kink at that time.
Okay.
So...
Well, even if you had been to cinematic, it's possible you wouldn't have seen us because the back room was literally a back room, and it was away from... When you walked in, there was sort of the main club and dance floor area where they would have live bands or it was just dance floor and bar and this kind of stuff. And then to the back of that was like a room with a pool table. And then behind the pool table, there was a door on the wall that would generally have somebody standing guard outside of it. And interestingly, the person that stood outside of that was later became a very well-known fetish photographer who just passed away recently.
Oh, who was that?
I'm just going to let you struggle with it for a moment.
Because he's in the memorial on FetLife. I have a memorial for people that have passed.
Oh, yeah.
And so somebody posted about him, and I can't remember.
I know it was a her.
Oh, her?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it was. Never mind.
Christine Kessler.
Oh, yeah, I don't.
Okay. Well, she stood guard, stood post outside, and inside is where all the fun took place. And unlike a lot of the clubs today, well, unlike virtually all the clubs today, it was more presentational than anything else. We had a stage up front and sometimes we would turn it into a thrust stage or whatever else, but different configuration of a stage in front and then rows of chairs for people to come in and watch. It was not necessarily audience participation. If like at the end of the night things got slow, everybody that had set something up ahead of time made it through their scenes. Aryn would often have me walk out on stage and sort of throw it open to the crowd and say, I'd get up there and do my carnival barker thing. We've been watching you, you've been watching us, and we know that there are people out there that have questions. There are people out there that have been watching and wanting and waiting, and have been waiting for an opportunity to try what we do here.
Okay,
this is your opportunity.
Stop.
Yeah.
Do it to the camera.
This is your opportunity. Step right up, come forward, be recognized, and you may play with any of the people that you've seen up here today. Just approach one of us, and we will negotiate a scene, and we will have. You will have your first experience in a place that's safe and it's fun, and you'll have quite a story to tell the people on Monday around the water cooler when they say, "What did you do this weekend?" You'll have the answer for them, and it will be a far more interesting answer than what they have. So I would get up there and do my my little spiel, and we would occasionally take people from the crowd basically and bring them up there, and sometimes that could get really tense. There was a time when it seemed like half the audience was police. Off-duty police.
Oh my God!
And I want you to keep in mind that this was at a time back in the '90s. It wasn't like today. Not at that club necessarily, but at the other clubs that had play going on, people got fucking busted regularly. The Vice Squad would show up and haul people away.
Well,
people went to jail.
They were known to do that in West Hollywood with the gay community.
Yeah.
They would just go in, wait for them to get filled up, and then just go to the paddy wagon.
Bam! Yeah. Well, the reason it didn't happen where we were, and the thing that made sort of set Cinematic apart was that the venue had an adult cabaret license, so we were pretty safe. We still had rules. We had to nipples had to be taped, all this kind of stuff. You couldn't get away with everything. There was no sex going on. There was nothing that untoward. that could have gotten us busted.
You saw the look on my face. No sex.
But at other clubs, people got busted and hauled away to jail, generally for things like the contents of their bags. Like people might have a switchblade or a dagger or something like that to do knife play, you know, and the cops would go through their shit and say, busted for possession of, you know, deadly weapons, blah, 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 blah. It was rarely sort of sex crime-y charges. It was mainly just harassment, but it led to, you know, interesting times like when the first club that I started at, Submission, when that closed, basically they got thrown out by the people that owned the building because they were having live bands play there and they weren't, you know, they didn't have the zoning and that kind of stuff. So the owner of the building gave them the heave, and so they sort of tried out 2 or 3 different venues. The first one they went to was literally down the street, but it was across the border from Orange into Anaheim. Disney Anaheim. There is a world of fucking difference between law enforcement in Orange and in Anaheim. So the first day the club opened in Anaheim, we all showed up and we had a number of uniformed police waiting for us to give us page and verse of what we were not allowed to do on stage in their public venue. And it was, let's go with a comprehensive list. We couldn't do shit.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it got closed down. They left there, they found another venue, and at that one it was like, I don't know what the hell this place was, but it seemed to me like during the day it was some kind of family steak restaurant or something like that. And we set up our little play area in like where you would go to wait for your table, this kind of thing. And so and it was on the second floor of this thing, and one day, you know, one of the weekends we're in there, we're all doing our shit, and we always had people keeping watch, even at cinematic, you know, while the audience was watching us, if you weren't scening, you were watching them to make sure people didn't get out of line, because they sometimes did. Well, it was during one of these watching that somebody happened to glance out the window and saw a column of uniformed police heading toward the door. And we knew we had about 3.5 minutes before they got there. So, bam, scene end, bags get reloaded, all the shit gets taken down, and everybody's just, you know, the cops come in and we're all just a bunch of bored-looking people sitting on top of, you know, duffel bags and things like that.
Wow.
Yeah, so we just, you know, we got right.
Boy, things have changed a lot, or have they? I mean, we're in Los Angeles. We're really fortunate of all the different clubs and stuff that we have. Yeah. And you know, you're talking about I have to call it, you know, the infancy of BDSM.
Well, I mean, it's certainly the infancy of the sort of widespread public scene. Yeah. Yeah,
because we didn't have a lot of that. You had Threshold, and you had Janus.
Yeah.
And then you had
one, then the other, if you're here.
Yeah, and Scorpio, which was a swing BDSM club.
Okay.
But they had, I think, private houses and stuff like that.
Yeah, makes
so
sense.
I don't think that they had a place for it.
Yeah.
You know, then I mean, I don't know how many people that are in the chat room that are not in Los Angeles, but
probably most of them.
We have a lot.
Because I figure if they're in Los Angeles, they're sick of my shit and they're not watching.
What did I do? I screwed it other. Yeah, because we're seeing all over the world. So and people. I mean, people do not have the ability to have the clubs like we have here.
Yeah, and I have my suspicions that if they ever really wanted to crack down, I think most of the public clubs are kind of on the very ragged edge of legal, if not on the other side of it. So
yeah, I agree with you.
I think you could probably, if somebody wanted to get, you know, be a bunch of moralistic dickbags and waste a lot of taxpayer money on unimportant shit, they could probably drop the hammer again.
Well, I think what happened is none of the clubs allowed sex.
Right.
You know, including the Lear Decide and including Threshold, and none of them allowed sex. Now they're all allowing sex.
Oh, are they really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
either people have gotten more confident in the lack of enforcement, or something fundamentally has changed. I don't know which.
I don't know.
Yeah, but I know that in the places that I worked, in the case of Cinematic, and in the case that I founded, in the case of that other place in Hollywood, there was no sex, there was nothing, there was no nudity, there was no, I mean, you had to mind your fucking P's and Q's.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at bars and stuff like that, you can't show any nudity, you can't have any sex, you have to have tape, and I almost sued. What was that? I was so pissed. Girls were running around with tapes on them, and I'm pretty well endowed in my boobs. I've got pretty big boobs. So this is when I thought I was a subby. And I had tape on me, and I took off my
just in case?
And you know.
Like you do.
And there was 2 of us that were big-chested,
okay.
and they told us to put our clothes back on. And I says, excuse me? I says, excuse me?
Yeah.
Because my breasts are too big?
Huh. You're
making me, and they can walk, all these women can walk around like that?
Yeah, that's clearly bullshit.
It is bullshit. E.T. liked, he goes, ha, 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 the orange curtain.
Yeah.
Art goes, the king of the water cooler. And E.T. says Anaheim is intense as hell.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So people in the chat room are talking. If you are not in the chat room, please go to TSRnetwork.com. It's TSRnetwork/watch line TV and come in the chat room and converse.
Just go there, you'll figure it out. You guys you're put on your big people pants and you'll find the right combination of mouse clicks to put you in a chat room full of people and ask a bunch of wacky questions. Like I said, I'm taking any kind of questions you want.
Any questions you guys want to ask.
Right. I will have an answer for you, and some of those answers will even be true.
Okay, Darren says, wow, the scene I've been in would have freaked them out big time if they would have raided those clubs. Laughing out loud.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Darren, because Darren was one of my ex-misses.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, the sweetheart. Wonderful, wonderful human being. Amazing human being. So let's get on to something. And he's taking credit for something because he did start this.
Yeah.
He did start this.
Yeah, there's that whole wacky nutty thing.
And what did you start?
All right. And this is the point at which I'm going to get people down the road that say, "Oh, that's bullshit," but I assure you it is not. And you can ask the people that have been around at the time. Apparently, and I say apparently because I'm putting that out there as a bit of a weasel words, just in case somebody can come along later and prove me wrong. But as far as I know, and as far as a lot of other people know, I'm the asshole that invented the Florentine.
And he has tried to teach me how to do Florentine live on the show. And in fact, I think did you use this? Did I take off my? Yeah. So tell them what you did.
Well, you lost a bet, is what it was.
Yeah.
What was the question? How did it start? Or?
Well, both.
Oh,
how did I lose the bet, and how did you start?
Last time I was on your show, sometime in early. Sorry, my nose is itching. There's some kind of weird allergy thing.
I do that too.
Last time I was on, which was like early 2012, you set an artificial threshold of some kind for if we get this many people in the chat room, I will let you flog me, and we well exceeded that number. And you true to your word, you ponied up your butt, and that's a strange expression. Let's edit that out later.
Well, if we get 60 people in the chat room, then you can give me 2 whacks on my butt. I know it's never going to happen.
I think the number has gone up a little bit.
Yeah, I haven't seen.
You heard her, folks. Let's hold her ass to this.
And I can't see how many people are. They've got to be in the chat room. I've got to be able to
count
them.
Yeah.
Not watching the show, but in the chat room.
You don't even have to have real names. I think you have the option of signing in anonymously as a guest. So have your dog on his iPad and just random people. Any old hackers out there, get some names spoofed up there.
And I've lost a bet to him before.
She has indeed, but she does pay up when she loses. So so good on you for that.
So
yes.
You put 2 and 2 together and you created something, and let's talk about that.
Okay.
The Florentine.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Not Florentine cookies.
No, and I didn't. I just clarify. I did not name it the Florentine. Mm-hmm. Okay, that was something that I don't even know who did that later on down the road. But what happened is that during my time at Cinematic, I had a bunch of different influences going on in my life. One of them was that club and the public performance aspect of it. At the time, I was also a student of a martial art called Kung Fu Sansu, or Choi Lei Ho Foot, if you're going with the
Chinese. Say that 5 times.
Choi Lei Ho Foot, which was the names of the families. It was different families that combined their styles. And in addition to that, I had just seen my very first Cirque du Soleil show. Mm-hmm. So, and I was a theater student at the time. And so I had these different influences swirling around in my head. And in Kung Fu, we had done a form, a double sword form, which if you were in Japanese martial arts, it'd be called a kata. In Kung Fu, they call it a form. Where it's sort of a long ritualized string of moves put together where all the techniques come from. And in this particular case, it was done with a weapon, and the weapon was a sword in each hand. And at the end of the form, there was a salute. If you're doing it without a weapon, the salute looks like this. And you salute the instructor and this kind of thing, and then you go back into your stance. If you are using weapons, you will sometimes throw some flashy moves in there to sort of enhance it. And in this case, it was the move which you now know as the Florentine with a pair of swords. It was cut and then cross the swords, spin them, and bring them into your sides. Well, once I saw that and I realized if you can do that with swords, you can do it with anything. And I wonder what that would look like with floggers. And so I went home and I tried it. And the answer is it looked pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was going to do with it at the time, but it was something I hadn't seen before. At the time, there was really only one person that was using 2 floggers. It was a guy named Mike Provine. Mike, if you're out there. Although he used them differently. When he used them, he used one in each hand, and they never crossed.
Mm-hmm.
It was still quite. It was circular, but it was also linear. There was no.
It's like how I do it because I can't do it for
Yeah, it was spinning both sides, this kind of stuff, and it was it's very effective and all that. But the difference was that they never crossed. They never crossed sides. It wasn't until I found this Kung Fu move and started applying it to this, and at the time I didn't have 2 floggers. Nobody had 2 floggers except Mike that were matched ones, and it was because he also built floggers. So he had match sets, and I was a poor college student, so I built my first set of floggers, specifically in order to have a matched, similarly weighted set that was identical with which to do this technique. And I just sort of refined it from there. And
you make beautiful floggers.
They're okay.
I think Venus de Milo ordered one for Ken Marshall.
She ordered a pair of for Ken.
And he's known me for all this time. He's never given me one for Christmas.
I don't give them away because I can't afford to. It just costs me so much in time and, more importantly, materials, which at this point I can't replace. I have lost my source of leather, and so I haven't really been advertising my website or anything else because I'm kind of limited as to what I can build based on what I have right now in terms of stock.
There's a new guy in town who is from Arizona, and he works with rare skins.
Define.
Alligator,
okay.
All sorts of rare skins.
Right.
And he's moving in. He's getting a studio downtown. I should introduce the 2 of you guys together.
I don't the rarest stuff that I use. I don't really use anything rare. I will use my preferred leather if I can make them out of anything. It's moose hide, just because it's very thick and dense and spongy. It feels like really militant deer. Mm-hmm. It's got the softness of deer, but the punch of something much heavier.
Well, his floggers are incredible.
Yeah?
I mean, I really don't expect him to give me one. I'm just trying to or give me 2. Just trying to make him feel guilty.
I think I've given away, in all the time I've been making floggers since like 1996, I think I've given away 2 floggers.
Well, I think
one of them was
smart.
a wedding gift.
I think that's smart.
Yeah.
I think it's smart. I mean, this is your business and this is what you do.
More importantly, I don't really like making them.
I made a flogger out of an old pair. My first flogger was an old pair of leather pants.
Okay.
And I cut it up and I used a hairbrush. I took out all the things from the round
hairbrush. For the handle? Okay.
Yeah, the round hairbrush, and I made it, and it looks like it's from, I don't know, ancient times, very barbaric and crazy. Yeah. And it's really light because it's really soft leather. Right. And I loaned it to someone, and he never gave it back to me.
That oily pig fucker.
Yep.
I hate that.
Yep.
I have a couple of original toys that one of which was stolen, and I will never see it again. And I'm still irritated about that one. That was a paddle that was in the shape of the chaos symbol, the 8-arrowed thing. Kind of looks like a cross with 8 points on it. I had a paddle that I made, and it was all hand cut and hand sewn, and it was a nightmare to make. I've only ever made 3 of those things because I really hate making those. and somebody stole the first one when I was at a party somewhere. But the very first floggers I ever made, the first ones I made were that first pair that I made to develop my new technique. My ex-girlfriend took those when we split. She still has them. And then I built a pair to replace them, which I threw together because I had shows to do at Cinematic, and it was Thursday and I had no floggers now. So I slapped these things together. The braiding sucked. They're a little bit crude, and they're still the ones that I use to this day as my first choice every time. Every time I build a set to replace them, I end up selling them because they don't feel as good as this pair.
Well, it's amazing. Carrie said, move to Alaska where you can get the moose hides all you want. But one other thing is that
I was actually talking to one of your guests to try to source some moose. You had
from Enzo, the Miss Leather.
Yes.
Yeah. I was just thinking of her, and I go, she's a good connector.
I sent a message. I don't know if she never got back to me or if it got picked off by spam or whatever else. But yeah, I made a try for it.
Well, try it again, and I will get a hold of her. I gave her a whole bunch of clothes.
Yeah.
I mean, when I went up to see her at Emzo for the award show when she was giving up her title or stepping down from her title, I brought all these different. I mean, the metal chain bra. I mean, all these different things that was just long leather coat and all the stuff that I don't do anymore.
The truth is, it's actually less the tail leather that's the problem right now. It's that when I and another guy named Master Aryn, we developed together the sort of our current state of the art.
You mean
how we
genius, Master Aryn?
He is brilliant.
He is brilliant.
Yeah, he really is. He and I sort of co-developed this new design for a flogger, which is, if you go to my website, most of the ones you're going to see are as a result of that work together.
And give them the name of your website.
It's Entropyland.com. www.entropy ENTROPYLAND.com. It is a rude, crude, stupidly thrown together website because I did it myself and I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
It's been like that forever.
It has, but I like it. It's kind of deliberately crude.
Yeah, it looks fun, and
but it's fun and it's wacky and zany and that kind of thing. But if you go there, you'll see those designs. Anyway, it's the handle leather that I do the elaborate braiding out of. It has to have very specific qualities about it. And the only way for me to judge that is to physically put my hands on the leather. Well, the company that I used to do that at went out of business in this area. So I don't have a source where I can go there and say, yeah, that's not going to work, that'll work, that kind of thing. So it has deeply cut into my ability to build new stuff. I'm kind of still building based on all the sort of stuff that I bought when they were still there.
So if anybody's in the chat room or watching the show and you know some really good leather people in the Los Angeles community, get a hold of them. And how can people get a hold of you?
They can, you know what, I think I'm having problems with my email on my website. So your best choices would be to contact me through FetLife or even my regular email address. Anything you type Entropy156 at virtually anything is going to get back to me. I'm Entropy156 on FetLife. I'm Entropy156 at Yahoo, at Gmail, just all over the place. I've cornered the market on that name, and I have profited.
Art in the chat room says, "Nice wedding gift, lucky couple."
Oh yeah, that was a fucking nightmare too. Well, this was back in the early '90s or mid '90s too. I was part of this group of people called the Cult of the Eye. It's a sinister secret society, and within our little group, we had 3 traditional gifts that anybody that got married got these 3 traditional gifts. It was a fondue set, a whip, and a twister game. And so for one couple, normally we would just hand them some kind of a riding crop or whatever else. It was cheap. But for this company, this couple, they were dear friends of mine, and I had actually introduced them. So I wanted something special, and so I made an all white deerskin flogger.
Oh wow!
Which was a fucking nightmare to make because you don't realize oils on your hands, dirt. So I actually built this at the aerospace company that I was working at, and I was like surgical gloves and all this kind of stuff, which I had to change frequently to make sure nothing got dirty. But in the end, it turned out quite beautiful. And these were for non-players. Yeah. They were really not part of the scene, and I don't know if they've ever used it or they just hung it on the wall or whatever else, but it looked really
So if
really
you're watching
cool.
This and you're the married couple and you don't use it, they've been sitting in the back of your closet, you can send them to Rev Mel.
Yes.
TSRnetwork.com. So we had
He's busy making fezzes right now. He doesn't need my my silly leather shit.
So Little T is in the chat room. Welcome, Little T.
Hi, Little T.
I love you, Little T. Little Taurus. She's been watching our show since we
forever.
Since we launched. Yeah.
That's right.
So she's in the chat room. E.T. says, which is otherwise known as erotic typewriter, says, my first one I made was out of crappy Spencer cat that I took apart and used the handle and made new tails.
That looks like there's a problem.
Oh, that's not, no, that's just that.
Oh, okay.
No, that's not a problem.
So we're still on the air?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still on the air. That one just went out.
Something wacky just happened on monitor you can't see. That was what that was about.
A monitor where I get to look at myself and make sure that I look absolutely amazing just went out.
It just said,
you know what?
Fuck off! We're not watching you anymore!
That's right. It says, Mel, stop looking at yourself. So now
it's kind of the electronic mirror.
I'm doing this to it, you know.
So tell me about your early experiences at the clubs. Yeah.
So that it went kaput.
Yeah. Well.
But that's okay. It does that. I don't know why it does that to that computer, but it doesn't matter. So what's a Spencer's gift?
Spencer. Oh, it's like a gift shop at malls that has like slightly suggestive, gifts. They'll have like that hard plastic vibrator that everybody has, and then they might have like made in Pakistan whip out of very, very cheap paper leather, that kind of stuff. It's probably what he's talking about.
Gross.
Well,
E.T.
Actually, I actually built one out of one of those once. It was a handle from one of those cheap ones, and I basically just used the handle and put a nice set of tails on it, so I had a little mini whip. Just because it was laying around and I had material left over and I was bored.
Yeah, it's really amazing to see in the sex stores what they're selling. In fact, Saturday, if you guys are in Los Angeles at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, come to the stock room. I'm teaching.
What would that be in metric time?
Yeah. Oh.
No, you're wrong. Yeah, totally stumped on that one.
Oh my God.
Come down to the stock room and see her class on primal play.
He knows.
I've done my homework.
Yeah, primal play. I'm doing a class for 3 hours. It's going to be
and while you're there, buy some shit because they're great people there.
Oh, they got some great floggers. They've got great
stuff. They have nice stuff.
And I get to go in and pick out stuff to
like demonstrate with.
I don't know if I can demonstrate, but things that you can use.
Okay.
In primal play. Like claws.
Yeah, like here's my props for educational purposes.
Yeah, so I can, and I have 2 really hot, sexy women.
Well,
going to be my demo models.
Excellent.
If I could get a buff guy, that would be awesome.
So if there are any burly stout fuckers out there that want to get their asses kicked by Rev Mel, next Saturday
at 3 o'clock.
At 3 o'clock
at the stock room.
In the stock room.
What's a stout fucker?
Big burly stout fucker. I don't know.
Stout
like.
I mean big.
Yeah.
I mean it's not like it's snort.
Yeah.
Pig.
No. That would be a snout.
That's pig carrot.
Stout with a T.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So just
not the beer either. Anyway.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking was the beer, and I don't drink beer.
Yeah.
I mean, that registered in my head. That's why I looked at him kind of strange. I went, stout beer, stout beer. I mean, why would I want a guy?
We'll post up a vocabulary list later, so that anybody that has questions, what the fuck is he talking about?
I was never a brain surgeon. Or a chemist.
No degree in rocket surgery or anything like that?
No, I'm not an engineer. Okay. None of those things. Creative wise, yes.
I'm not an actor, but I play one on TV.
So, where have you seen? Tell me about the changes of the BDSM lifestyle that you have seen in the last, since the 90s, since you've been in there.
Well,
there's a lot of changes.
It's been a really the biggest change is that the prevalence of the internet. Back when I was sort of getting started at this, there was very little in the way of, well, first of all, there was no web. There was no, what you think of as the internet didn't really exist per se. You might have found little sort of chat rooms and things like that. The only online purveyor of BDSM toys and sex toys and that, for example, was the stockroom.
Stockroom was first?
It was, yeah.
But what about the pleasure chest?
Online presence. Stockroom, JT's stockroom had the very first, as far as I know, and if somebody's out there, they can correct me on this, I'm fairly certain they were the absolute first people to sell this stuff online.
Oh, wow, because I thought maybe
the website was all text. And I remember checking it out back when I was younger.
In the olden days.
Yeah, back when there was no, back when if you were a computer guy like me, you were like going around to BBSs, which were like
what are BBSs?
Bulletin board system. It's like,
oh yeah,
yeah. But on the net there was this. They had a presence. It was all text. It was their catalog, and they had restraints and like silicone whips and stuff, shit that they built right there in their shop, like they still do to this day. And
they're still in stout. They're still on the stout in the chat room. They go stout beverage. They go, I'm in.
You guys are so easy to throw off.
I know. So they were the first ones to place it online.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been going to the Pleasure Chest since I was 30 years old.
Yeah.
So the Pleasure Chest has been around.
Well, they've been around forever. Yeah.
Forever.
But in terms of online presence, they were.
Well, they used to have really good floggers and some really good.
Who did?
The Pleasure
Oh
Chest.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden it started to dive down a little bit, and it's not as good as quality as it used to have.
Well, that's not entirely surprising, because back then, if you were making them, it was because you had a passion for making them.
Yeah.
There was no. Well, I'm sure there were crap. I'm sure there were crap ones out there. But if you were somebody that was making these things, you were somebody that cared deeply about A, the scene, and B, flogging, and you most likely started because you couldn't find toys that fit your purposes, which is why I started building them. And so it was, sort of the legends of making these things. It was Heartwood, and they used to sell Heartwood stuff at Pleasure Chest.
Oh, well, there was one who used to make paddles. Remember the guy who was at the Lear? He used to make paddles. His paddles were absolutely amazing, and then he died.
Oh, Ledermeister? Was that the guy you're talking about? I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, amazing stuff. I have one of
their old print catalogs.
Yeah. Wow.
From again back in the Jurassic era.
Can floggers and stuff like that be made in a factory?
Yeah, just not well.
Yeah.
Yeah. In order to do really nice high-end ones, you pretty much got to get your hands dirty, and that means you've got to, there's no machine that will do well. There might be, they braid like stainless steel hoses for cars and things like that. So in theory, you could build a machine that would braid a handle, but not the way I do it. When I do braiding, I do figures in it, I do initials in it, this kind of stuff. I kind of do, and this was one of the innovations that Aragon and I kind of threw into it, was that we were taking the sort of Australian whip style braiding and bringing it into our flogger handles, that kind of stuff.
Do you also do whips?
I do not.
Yeah, just.
There are too many people out there that make whips that are way too good. And I would want, if I was doing them, I'd want to do them out of leather. And just the process of cutting leather to make a whip is, again, a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
Because every one of those little strands is tapered down the length of it and beveled on the edges of it. So, and they cut that stuff freehand. If you've ever seen a real whip master making whips, they start with a piece of kangaroo hide and they cut out these thongs from it to make, and it is way more time and way more effort than I want to invest in learning a new skill.
Yeah.
When there are so many really, really good people out there making them already. All the heavy lifting's been done on that. If you want a really high quality whip, you can buy one. You don't have to make one. In my case, I was a broke college student that needed a match set of floggers. Nobody sold match sets of floggers. And if they did, I wouldn't have been able to afford it anyway. So I started making my own. So that's kind of, how that went. So no, I've never even considered.
You're known for your floggers. People, they go.
People seem to like them.
Yeah, they do. They do. I mean, the one that you made for Ken Marcus.
Yeah, the pair that I made for Ken Marcus was pretty exceptional.
Yeah, for his birthday party.
It changed. It was a braid that changed color midway. It went from a black and red braid to a black and silver braid to a black and red braid on the handle, and then moose hide tails and stuff. It was pretty gorgeous. If you go to my website, Entropyland.com, and watch out for the clowns when you get there, you'll be able to see that and many others.
Well, speaking of entropy, let's talk about something else.
Okay. What do you want to talk about?
We're coming down to the end of time. We've been. What's that say?
That says 8:50.
Wow, I can't believe this.
Where does the time go?
It does.
Yeah.
So you've gone through a really, really rough
Why, whatever do you mean?
Experience. I mean, would you like to share with the audience of what
sure.
you just went through?
Well, it wasn't
We were all in shock.
Yeah.
We were all very.
Imagine my surprise.
Yeah, we were all very. It made us. So many of us feel so sad. And
yeah.
We don't mean to put a damper on the conversation.
Well, no,
but there's reasons why we're talking about.
There absolutely is. Okay, so 2012. I did your show, and not too long after that was the DomCon LA. When I was at DomCon, I was not feeling well. That is a gross understatement. I was coughing my guts out the whole time. I had no energy. I was like, Red Bull, just to get alive enough to get up there and do my class, which I teach every year at this thing, along with Sir Nick Sertanis and Master Aryn. The three of us do a class together. Well, I was on enough during the class that you probably couldn't tell how sick I was, but about 3 days after the class, I crashed hard. I stopped eating. I was completely exhausted all the time. And because I was coughing so much, I had just assumed this is bronchitis. I've had bronchitis before. I didn't have health insurance, so I went to one of the doc-in-a-box places. They did a chest x-ray. They said, well, we don't see anything, chest x-ray. Here's some antibiotics. Go take the antibiotics. And that didn't work. The cough just got worse. I was getting yet more exhausted. I was starting to drop weight to the point where it was getting a little spooky. And things just got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse until it got to the point where I no longer had the energy to stand or sit. By the time I made it to the hospital, which that's where this is going. By the time when I was in the waiting room for the emergency room being checked into the hospital, I could not sit upright in a chair. I had that little energy. I was slumped over, barely there. And the reason is because I was about 2 or so days from dead.
Oh my God.
Now, when I had gone to that hospital, I was still doing I've got bronchitis and I can't shake it. It must be some kind of antibiotic resistant bacteria. I'll go there. They'll run a day worth of tests, whatever. Everything's going to be cool. So I get in there and they immediately admit me to intensive care, which is never a good sign.
No.
I had at this point, still doing the bronchitis math.
What the fuck?
Followed by the what the fuck math as things are starting to sound progressively more serious. Days of hellish misery and testing ensue. And what we find out is the reason I can no longer keep myself upright or do fucking anything is because I have no functioning blood left in my body. Almost none. To the point where my doctor, before they sent me to the emergency room, was saying, "Are you bleeding from somewhere? Do you have? Are you shitting blood? Are you
internal bleeding?
Are you bleeding internally? Does this hurt? This kind of stuff." Somehow I was losing blood and could not account for it, which is a weird concept.
You gotta stop dating that vampire.
Somebody's stealing my blood. What it turns out is that my body had stopped making blood. Your blood, your blood is cells, and those red blood cells, they live for a certain amount of time and they die, and they are replenished in your bone marrow. That's what your bone marrow does. It makes, among other things, it makes red blood cells. So if it stops making red blood cells, there's nothing transferring oxygen. There's nothing really keeping you alive anymore. That was what would happen. Well, that was what happened to me. And the reason it happened to me was because I had stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Oh my God.
I had, yeah. And by the way, there is no stage 5, if that tells you how serious this was. Normally with lymphomas, and it's a cancer it's considered a blood cancer. It's a cancer of the lymph nodes, the lymph system. Generally speaking, and I had a friend that had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma back in the 90s, and we all went through that process with him. But with him, suddenly overnight, his neck swelled up, just like it looked like somebody had taken this glass and sewn it under his skin, and it appeared out of nowhere. Okay, so he wasn't getting the kind of symptoms I was getting. He just boom, there's this fucking thing on his neck. And when they biopsied, they found out that you've got some fucking problems here. In my case, it was what they call occulted. There was nothing showing. There was nothing visible because it was all going on right next to my spleen. And by the time I got in there, it had spread to bone marrow. It had spread to my spleen. It had spread. There was there's a test you take called a PET scan, which is it's like a CAT scan, except they fill you with radioactive sugar. Like it goes coursing through your bodies, and cancer cells fucking love sugar. So this radioactive sugar gathers at places where cancer cells are active, metabolically active, and boom, it lights up and it shows where the tumors are. Well, I lit up like fucking Christmas, all internally. You couldn't see it. I wasn't, particularly sore. There was nothing that would have given the game away other than I was just dying. So I spent 3 long, yes, horrible fucking weeks in the hospital in Lakewood, California. I lost like 40 pounds in the process. And then, it was, stage 4 cancer. I did chemo. It was supposed to be, at the beginning of this, I was told, okay, well, the good news is if you're going to get cancer, bam, you won the bonus round because this is one that they can cure. Basically, you're going to go through 6 rounds of chemo, which is each round of chemo is 2 sessions of chemo. So basically 12, enjoyable experiences of having medicine so toxic that it comes in biohazard packaging, shot straight through your veins. And after that, you should be good. Well, I did, and it wasn't. I ended up doing 9 rounds of chemo and then radiation, which, by the way, if you're wondering what the new look is all about, that was why. Because I had a choice at one point of either being a dead guy with really good hair or a live guy with not so good hair. And so the first day of chemo out of the hospital, I shaved my head into a mohawk. Basically, it was my tribute to the photographs of some of the Ranger platoons during D-Day. They all shaved their heads into mohawks before they went to certain death as a way to terrify the enemy. So I did that. It was my tribute to them. Plus, I'd always kind of thought it'd be cool to have a mohawk. A friend of mine later on that I know from real life and on FetLife later told me that in Iraq and Afghanistan, there's a tradition among Marines called a war hawk, where after your first firefight, you shave your head into a mohawk. It is officially frowned upon. You're not supposed to do it, but they do it anyway. It's called a war hawk. And he said, what you've got is a fucking war hawk. And I said, well, okay, I'll accept that. That was the point of it. So nearly fucking died and then didn't.
So you're battling for your life. When we heard about this, because we didn't hear the details about it.
Well, I just kind of vanished for a while, and people were starting to leave me scared messages. Yeah. And it wasn't until sick plus hospital plus a couple of weeks after the hospital that I decided to come forward and say, thanks for your concern. Here's what's happening. And I did what is now kind of an infamous series of posts on FetLife. If you go to my FetLife page and go to my writings, you'll find my documentation of the entire thing from beginning to end. And all of the false, the goal line kept moving on that. Just when it looked like I was going to be good, they would do another test. And, oh, by the way, it's still, here, this kind of thing. So you can find the whole, story. And I wrote it to be fun, like you do.
Because you always bring your sense.
It's a depressing topic. So I wanted to make it as, I'm still me, sick or not. I still have this sort of ironic, dark, kind of wacky sense of humor, and it was very much present in all of those things I wrote. So if you want to read the epic story, go ahead and check that out.
Well, there's also somebody. Right now, Javier has walked into the chat room. Welcome,
hey,
Javier.
how's it going, man?
So there's someone that you wanted to reach out to.
So and this is apparently something that has been going on since near the beginning, like the beginning of this year, from what I understand. And I caught word of it just right around the time that I said that I would do your show, which was probably a month and a half ago when a friend of hers made a post.
Yeah, I booked you early.
There's a pro-dom in, I think it's Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Her name is Coral Corrupt. I don't know her. I've seen her profile on FetLife, and she has adorable baby pet skunks. She apparently adopts and hand raises skunks as pets, and they're fucking cute. But apparently, somewhere at the beginning of this year, she was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. I want to say it was uterine cancer, but I'm not certain on that. I think that's what it was. And she is she did a post just a while ago saying that I guess she had been through chemo and whatever surgery and this kind of thing, and she just did a PET scan like what I was talking about, and it lit up like the fucking 4th of July. So it has apparently spread possibly to her lungs and several other places. Now, this is a woman that is self-supporting, a self-supporting entrepreneur, which is something that I respect above all things. This is somebody, she has health insurance, but let me tell you, even with health insurance, there's a fucking lot of bills when you're dying of cancer. Now, I'm not saying she's dying, but the treatment is not cheap, and the bills stack way the hell up. I was fortunate. I had family that supported me. She does not have family. She has only herself to go on, and those bills are piling up. And when you're sick, when you're in chemo, you're in no position to be working, doing strenuous things. I did a lot of strenuous things when I was doing it, but I was fortunate in that chemo didn't affect me that badly. It didn't exactly tickle, but it wasn't as traumatic as I was expecting it to be. And I don't know if it is the case with her. Like I said, this is not somebody I know personally or intimately, but she's still somebody that I want to help out if I can. And she has some friends have started a GoFundMe website in order to raise funds to try to help her out, with her bills while she is fighting this and unable to work. In fact, as it just happens, I have the website right here. So I want you all to pay particular attention to this and give her a hand. Give her, I know it's Christmas. I know money's tight. I know people are having a hard time financially and all this stuff, but for fuck's sake, get in there and kick in whatever you can. That. Yeah. Okay.
So go to GoFundMe.com /CORALSCAN as in Nancy CER. Yeah. And go and
kick in a few bucks. You don't know her, I don't know her, but this is somebody that needs help. And we make a lot of balloon juice about being a community. So let's see some of that put into action.
There are people that say that we're not a community, and
I'm kind of one of them. I say we are not really a community. I say we are a group of tribes that sometimes interact with each other. Hostily or not.
Yeah,
prove me wrong. Yeah, get your ass to this website and kick in some goddamn money, because this is a woman in need. She's one of ours.
Yep.
Prove me wrong. Prove to me that there is community. Here's how you do it.
Well, Pig Carrie in the chat room says, Entropy, you are loved by many. I miss you. Don Javier says, hey, Entropy.
Hey.
So let's talk
Don
about
Javier. That's one bad motherfucker right there.
Oh, he's one of my best friends.
Yeah.
Him and I are really, really tight. He wants to spank me, and I back that up. And there's only a couple people that can get away with that with me. That will tease me. I want to spank you. I just want you to be my submissive.
Who are some of the others I want? Kane. How many do we have in the chat room? He said, apropos of nothing.
No, Kane and Javier are probably the only two men that I allow to let
Unless you lose a bet, in which case I go on that list.
Yeah, and you can always tease me. But let's talk about. Okay, you came down with cancer.
Yeah.
You were very, very sick.
I was.
And you're dominant.
Yeah.
How does a dominant feel with a life-threatening situation like that? Because you probably had to, when you're having chemo and radiation and everything, you probably were pretty sick, and you probably had to get help from a lot of people, like your family.
I got financial help from my family. Mm-hmm. Once I was in the hospital, I pretty much handled all my shit on my own for the most part. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was not for lack of offers. Everybody came forward. Everybody wanted to help. Everybody wanted, Mr. Cyan offered to host a charity thing for me to try to raise money for my bills. And I turned all of it down for the most part. I don't know if it has anything to do with dominance or anything like that. It's just who I am and who I've always been. I am not the guy that asks for help.
Yeah.
I'm not the guy that easily receives help when offered. After the first, well, second, because the first time, my first encounter with chemo was a nightmare hell scenario that happened in the middle of the night on a fresh surgical site, and it was Dante's Inferno nightmare, which I only remember parts of. But after the first time, when I was out of the hospital and going through it myself, I had, there was occasionally I would have, for example, Aragon drove me to one of my appointments one time during the first 2 or 3 sessions, because at that point I was sort of, getting my footing. I was incredibly weakened from being in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I dropped about 40 pounds while I was in there.
Yeah.
By the time I got out, I couldn't keep pants on. I mean, everything was literally falling off me. I came out looking like a skeleton. So there were a lot of things I was too weak to do on my own, but also I was sort of testing the waters. I wanted to, I had people drive me to my first 3 appointments because I wasn't sure what kind of shape I was going to be in afterwards. Once I determined that, yeah, fuck, I've got this, I drove myself to all of my appointments. Did
you keep this away from a lot of people?
I kept it away from everybody.
Yeah, because
and
I was
and
shocked
to a
when I
degree,
found
yeah.
out.
I mean, other than the sort of public thing that I did on FetLife, just to sort of keep people informed, and because there were people that were afraid that I was dead or something really horrible had happened.
I was told by someone before you presented it.
Yeah,
because,
and so I mainly did it to dispel that. No, I'm still alive. You can't kill me. But other than that, I mean, I'm not going to say to my shame, but I really did withdraw a lot. I contrast this with my other friend, one of my dear friends and cult brothers, that when he had cancer, and by the way, he had it in the 90s, so he had a much harder road than I did. We all, boom, we rallied the troops and we circled the wagons around him, and we were there, doing whatever we could. I was actually giving him injections at one point. There was a drug that you take to enhance white blood cell production, because one of the things that chemo does is it just kicks your immune system's ass. There were times when I was in the hospital that I was basically in isolation in an overpressure room, because if there had been any kind of infection, I'd have been fucking dead. I didn't have any immune system left over. I had all of my blood had been replaced. My white blood cell count was virtually bottomed off the scale, and so there was that vulnerability. But when he was doing it, he was all outpatient, and I was actually giving injections and this kind of stuff. So we circled the wagons around him. When my turn came, I didn't really want any of that. So I kind of pulled myself away from my friends to my detriment. I took myself entirely out of the scene. I still haven't really even come back to that. Yeah. I came out to teach my class at DomCon, but I haven't been seen in the clubs since I got sick, for various reasons.
So are you cured of it, or are you in remission? What is the prognosis of this?
It's I still, when the first test came up clean, I still had appointments with the oncologist every month, and then as you get further away, it's every 2 months, and then every 6 months. I haven't had a PET scan in a while. I'm probably about due for one, but after 6 months, after the all clear, I had one, and it was okay. So basically, I'm being monitored at this point. If I get past 5 years with no sign, then I'm probably okay. But this is one of those things that I've known of people that have had it 3 times.
Wow.
That it comes roaring back when you least expect it later in life. So
was there cancer in your family?
No.
Because a lot of times they say there's other people, like mother, father, or aunt or uncle that have had cancer.
I won the fucking lottery.
Wow.
Nobody else had it. Actually, that's not true. Not before me, I should say. Right about when I got the good news, my mom got a breast cancer diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
So I was down there helping her through that.
Yeah.
And she got very lucky. She, they found it very early. They took care of it surgically. She didn't even have to do chemo. I mean, basically they did the surgery and the reconstruction in the same surgery.
Wow.
So basically, she got, I don't want to, it sounds fucking terrible to say she got off light, but
But thank God.
Yeah. Because she's like 60 years, or she's about 70 years old. She's like 69. I think she just turned 70 recently. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I'm glad she had an easier fight, but it was a much easier fight.
Javier says, Dr. Schultz has cured cancer naturally. His methods can keep the cancer away without damaging your body. Has Entropy heard of him or his methods? Please check him out. You have to be with us. You have to be with us for a long time.
Well, part of the problem with that, and again, thanks for the concern for the info. Cancer is not one thing. Mm-hmm. It's not a disease. It is hundreds. I don't know. I'm pulling a number out of my ass. Look, we'll call it a couple of hundred separate diseases, entirely different. They all have different causes. They have different, this kind of thing. With what I had, it's not like breast cancer where there's a tumor here. You treat the tumor, and you can do that with. There have been some very interesting. When you're sick, you've got a lot of time to listen to podcasts and do a lot of research, and that's just kind of how I'm wired anyway. But there have been some very interesting things going on, research into approaches which cut off the blood supply to it through drugs which don't make you sick, but which reduce basically it starves the tumor out and kills it that way.
Oh, it's the same thing that they do with fibroids.
Possibly.
Fibroids,
Yeah.
they if they can cut off the blood supply, that's why women that have fibroids when they're in their 30s and 40s, when they go through the change of life, because the blood isn't going into there anymore, it cuts it off completely, and they shrink.
Tumors will, they're well supplied with blood, and that's how they survive. But that's with certain types of tumors. That approach doesn't work when it is something like what I had, where it's the lymph nodes. It's not a discrete. There were areas where there was, I had like a golf ball size something in my spleen area, but it's irregular cells in the bone marrow that are sort of at the base of all of this, and you really can't treat that the same way as you could with something that's more discrete, because it's systemic.
But the coughing, I mean, you would associate the coughing with lung cancer.
Well, yeah, I didn't associate it with fucking anything, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's when I hear coughing, I think
apparently, it is a very, very common. People that found out later and sort of did the research said, "Oh yeah, that's like, And there were, had I been more aware, I probably could have caught this early, because the coughing was not the only symptom. One of the other things that would have been a big hello, there's something really fucking wrong here, that's kind of Kermit-like, wasn't it? Yeah. Hey, the Muppet Show.
I like that. Wake them up out there.
There was one of the things that was happening was that I was having a thing called night sweats, which doesn't, I guess the term really tells you what it is, but basically, no matter what the weather or temperature, air conditioned or not, every night I would literally, you could wring out anything I was wearing and the sheets.
Menopause. That's what women go through.
Yeah.
Menopause.
This was like every night, drenching. I mean, it looked like I jumped in a swimming pool.
Wow.
And this happened every night. I was getting chills, and most of that kind of stuff was really becoming more noticeable the closer I got to dead. So I was having chills, and I was just I was a mess. I wasn't eating. I couldn't keep food down. I had no interest in doing so anyway.
So
if I'd have been paying attention, I would have known something more serious was wrong. I just wasn't, because I didn't know.
It's denial.
Partially, but everything else, all the things that I was experiencing, I kind of attributed to something. Well, okay, this is bronchitis. I've had horrible coughs before. Maybe I was being a little silly, but then again, I didn't have any blood, so there was no oxygen going to my brain.
So you're in the hospital. You're in intensive care, and you're sick. Yeah. What's going on in your mind? Besides, oh fuck.
There was a good deal of oh fuck. That's because right up until they, came right out and said cancer, I still had no idea what was going on, and I didn't know what was going on. They were running tests and tests and tests, and some of them were really fucking unpleasant. but I wasn't getting a lot of feedback. I wasn't getting a lot of information back.
Was it because they weren't really sure? Or?
Yeah. They're sort of I think they knew, but they didn't want to say until they really knew. But unfortunately, that involves some pretty unpleasant shit. Like the one that I talk about in one of the things I wrote is a bone marrow biopsy, which is, if you get the opportunity, pass. Basically, they take a thing that looks like an awl, AWL. It's got a rod about like this, a big point, and they basically hammer it right through your ass into your hip bone, and then they crank it and twist it until it bores through the bone, and then they put a syringe on there, and then they suck out bone marrow and fluid. Okay. No. When I was in the hospital, that was fine.
Can't they put you to sleep for that?
They could. They did not when I was out of the hospital, but when I was in the hospital, they shot me full of Ativan and Dilaudid.
Oh, that's like.
Oh my God!
Like oh yeah, I've heard Dilaudid is 10 times stronger than heroin.
That is what I've heard, and I've heard it from people that would know.
Yeah.
The ironic thing here is that I like to say straight edge without the sanctimoniousness. Mm-hmm. I do not use recreational drugs. I do not drink. I do not smoke. I never have, and it's not because it's because some kind of moralizing thing. I just don't have any use for it. I've never been interested.
Smoke weed?
I did not. I had it. If I'd have snapped my fingers, the national byproduct of Jamaica would have shown up at my house, but I did not.
Was chemo and all this, or you didn't?
No. They gave me some prescription pills that controlled the nausea to the point that I never really felt it beyond. I threw up twice during the whole thing. Both of those were in the hospital after the first time.
Wow.
When I wasn't on that drug. As it stood when I got out, I would take this stuff for about a day and a half afterwards. I didn't like taking it because it made me drowsy and dizzy and did some other things. But for the most part, I just did it.
So what did you learn by this?
I learned that Dilaudid is fucking awesome. Seriously, when they did that test in the hospital with those two drugs, they could have dug a fucking hole in me with a post hole digger and installed a cat door in my pelvis, and I wouldn't have given fuck one about it.
Wow.
I was that far gone. People, Aragon came to visit me in the hospital. Apparently 3 or 4 times. I was only aware of one, but apparently I had conversations all those other times. So I was so far gone and happy that I didn't really notice. So that made it less unpleasant. I had a needle biopsy of my spleen, where your spleen is, let me think. It's so funny when I think of where's the spleen liver, I have to think of it in Kung Fu terms because we always taught, spleen river. So it's on the left side of the body, and it's kind of in the front. It's kind of right there, but that's not how they do a biopsy of it. They do it from the back. So I had a big ass needle stuck all the way through me, with they were using a CAT scan to sort of figure out where it goes. And I was shot full of, I was pumped full of goofballs during that too. So that wasn't bad. However, once I got out of the hospital and they had to do another bone marrow biopsy, holy fucking shit. If you are a total pain slut and you want blinding agony that will light up your world with horror, get yourself a bone marrow biopsy. Otherwise, fucking avoid them.
Well, they're talking about pain. Yeah. I just lost my chat room.
Uh-oh.
I'll get it back.
I'm sure
it's just trying to load back up.
Object permanence.
Yeah, it's just trying.
Yeah.
They're talking about Javier says, then I should say poke and slave. I don't know what that's about.
Probably a response to something that somebody else said.
Oh, they said, here they are. Or should I say good dom or oink oink? And then somebody says it's bad pain. That was E.T. said bad pain. And Javier said, should I say poke and slave? And then Piggy says, yep, bad pain.
Yeah, if you're looking for a nuclear option to threaten somebody with, go with that one.
Yep.
Because they numb, basically, like I said, the big awl goes right through your ass into the bone, and they can numb all that. You don't feel that. You feel the end of it hit your bone, which is uncomfortable. The things get really exciting once they go through there because they cannot numb the inside of that. And unfortunately, when I did it, they didn't offer me the Dilaudid and Ativan cocktail of fun. So I think I literally tore a hole in the vinyl covering of the thing I was on with my bare fingers.
Oh my God.
It was.
It's making me sick. It's making me. My back is hurting. My stomach is hurting.
It hurt so bad that I actually went in. I had to fight off shock for a moment. I was getting lightheaded and tunnel vision, and hot and all this kind of stuff. It was that fucking unpleasant. And this is coming from a guy who has dug bullet fragments out of his own arm with his fingers and had a cut on his knee that was down to the bone. It was showing bone. I had one of those cleaned out without anesthetic. Okay. All of that, that's not even in the same, that's not in the same league. That's not even the same fucking sport as this bone marrow biopsy. It was so bad that later on in the process, when there was a possibility I was going to have another one, because after all the radiation and everything else, there was still something there. It was glowing slightly in terms of metabolically active. So they weren't really sure. And so basically I had to sit around for 6 months with no treatment whatsoever just to see what happens. And believe me, that's fun too.
Yeah.
You know, you don't make plans when something like that's going. You don't think in long term.
No bucket list?
You know, not really.
Yeah. So now that you've gone through this, and if you go through the 5 years, and what are you going to do with your life? Well, that's what I'm trying to, you know, I'm still, unfortunately, and all of this saga ended basically last year at this time. Yeah. I'm coming up, and if I did the research, I could find out. I'm coming up on the 1 year anniversary of my first totally clean, you're done test. So I think it's time you come out and play.
It probably is.
Yeah, maybe New Year's Eve, come to the Lyric.
But there's
birthday party.
There's so much other stuff that I need to get my poop in a group, man. I have been unemployed. I was unemployed through all of that. I still am. I've got a 2 year, well, now going on 3 year gap in my resume, which, you know, apparently I am plutonium to potential employers. So I'm sort of still trying to find a job, get my career back on track. And to that end, I've gone back to school, and I'm taking some classes in a program called SolidWorks, which is a 3D modeling and drafting program, which will allow me to rule the world.
Make guns.
Make anything you can think of.
It says the reason I said that was because Javier says use it to, the back thing, use it to interrogate Isa and Oculus.
I've actually got an even worse idea for them, and if you ask me about it, I'll tell you. It was something I formulated for, here's what I would do if I got my hands on bin Laden back when he was still among the living. Okay.
We'll change it to the guy. We'll change it to the guy that's doing ISIS, the head of ISIS.
Yeah.
So if you got your hands on him.
If I got my hands on him.
Okay. So we hope we don't create a hit on you, for this.
Bring it. That's the other sort of liberating thing about when you've been right at the edge and sort of, you know, seen over the end of it. It holds no horrors for you. You know. I am not afraid of death like I used to be. You know. It was actually almost pleasant.
Wow.
Basically, it was just, you know, now I was still probably days away, but it just would have been more of same. I just got more and more sleepy, you know. As deaths go, it wouldn't have been a bad way to go out. I had things I still had to take care of, so I wasn't going to go out, but.
Well, we're glad you didn't.
Well, yeah, I am too.
We were all pretty worried.
It certainly beats the alternative.
Well, in the chat room, Javier says, "Come to my birthday party. You can come as my guest."
Thank you.
ET, which is erotic typewriter.
Erotic typewriter.
Says,
I fucking love that name.
Make a giant dildo.
Out of a 3D print one?
Yeah.
You could.
Yeah.
In fact, this is a wacky. We got a fucking blind alley detour. They have technology now to 3D print concrete. I have seen like little castles, like the size of a house or like a big children's playhouse, 3D printed out of concrete. You got a thing that lays down beads of concrete on top of each other. It's astonishing. We are on the precipice of a new industrial revolution.
Well, I like the concrete that come in flat things, flat slabs that are dry, and you add water to them, and they harden, and you can do any forms you want. They don't crack, they don't do anything. They're just, I mean, I want an igloo house like that, a big, you know, it's like 4-story house like that, you know, just concrete slab. You might want to reinforce it with some steel, but that's how actually this is done too. They actually have what's called rebar stuck through it, and so this is like a reinforced concrete, and it can be as elaborate as you can design. It's limited only basically by your imagination. That's what's really cool about this technology, is that if you can imagine it and you have the skills to render it in a program, it can be built. You too can have that in your FEMA home.
That's right.
I'm such a conspiracy person. You know,
Where's that tinfoil? I brought you some tinfoil to.
I can put it on my, I'm fascinated by. I watch, like, all the movies that I watch are the apocalypse. I can't even say it.
Apocalypse.
Apocalypse. Thank you. I can't do it. No. Entropy. You know how long it took me to say
you're saying my name right anyway.
Okay, I am.
You'll notice the stun gun hasn't come off the holster yet.
I know. Last time he was like, everything, so I said it wrong. But
if you check the archives, you'll get to see that one too, along with the other one where I shot the host of the show in the neck with a dart and took the thrower.
Oh, I forgot about that. That was awesome.
I have been a disruptive force on your little network.
The network is getting bigger and bigger. I mean, we have.
Yes.
I can't believe the amount of people that have watched the shows.
It seems to have gotten really huge. Yeah.
And I don't worry if there's not 50 million people in the chat room, because it goes straight onto YouTube, Google Plus,
nice.
FetLife. Facebook, I mean, everywhere.
Boom,
people
everywhere.
can watch it. Yeah, and so it's been
omnipresent.
Yeah, it's been pretty phenomenal.
That'll be another one that goes in the glossary for today's show.
Yeah,
omnipresent. Never mind. Continue.
Omnipresent.
Yes.
So definition.
Everywhere at once.
Oh, yeah, omnipresent. I'm gonna have to remember that and just put that as my TSR network. Omnipresent.
There you go.
That's right. But yeah, we've been doing really well, and been hard work. We didn't think we were going to get it up and running.
Cool.
Trying to get Don Javier back.
Good to hear you can get it up.
Oh.
What?
My clit doesn't have to get that hard. Mine still grows. But we've been trying to get Javier to come back to the show.
Oh, yeah.
Hudsey's, we're negotiating. She's coming back.
Cool.
We hope she's coming back.
I love Hudsey.
And then we have...
In fact, if you go to my website, Entropy.com, you can see some really gorgeous pictures of Hudsey with some of my floggers, along with other pictures. I've got 2 galleries of art, basically. One of them is Hudsey, and the other one is the world-famous Ashley Renee, also using and holding some of my floggers. Yeah, she's delightful.
She is delightful.
So go check those out, if nothing else.
She was on my show.
Even fuck floggers. Go check these 2 women out.
Ashley was on my show.
She was.
And you were there with her.
That was kind of a funny story because she's shockingly shy. It's cute how shy she is, given how much of an icon she is.
I mean, we had our chat room was packed that night.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
And it has, I mean, it's been viewed by so many people.
Basically, she told me, come be on the show with me. I said, well, what the hell do people want to listen to my ass, when you're going to be there? She said, come on the show with me or I won't be doing the show. So I was kind of like, have you ever been to a zoo where they have a cheetah? And then next to the cheetah, they've got a dog that has grown up with the cheetah. And the dog's purpose is to make the cheetah feel safe. That was my function on that show.
It was awesome.
She was the beautiful cheetah, and I was the mangy dog whose job it was to keep the cheetah from panicking and running.
Well, I'm so glad you did come with her.
It was a fun night. It was a fun night.
Any regrets?
Regrets? I've had a few. But then again,
regrets.
See, she's where I was going with there. I do. Some I am willing to talk about, and others I am not. I regret the way that I isolated and cut off a lot of people that cared about me. I didn't do it out of malice. I didn't even do it consciously in many ways. I was just me dealing with a difficult situation in the way that I knew how.
When we're in trouble, we do that. When I lost the studio, I shut down, and the only people that really reached out to me was Javier, Little T, Venus de Milo, which is my best friend, and another friend of mine named Deb. Those are the only people.
Well, I would have had I known.
I know.
I was kind of busy at the time.
But I didn't tell anybody either.
Yeah.
Nobody knew the story. Yeah. So I wasn't out there. I stopped going to the club, stopped being out there. I wasn't doing the shows anymore. And I was looking at my wounds and healing.
Yeah.
And so I think that, I don't know if it's a dominant trait. I think that that's what we do. Because we're so used to taking care of everybody.
Yeah.
And then when it gets down to us, we think we can take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And we don't want to burden anybody.
Yeah.
We don't want to put anybody out.
Yeah.
Because if I can't do it, I mean, that's why I have a really hard time with submissives and owning them, is because if I have to tell you to do it twice,
right,
I don't want to forget about it. I'll do it.
Yeah.
Because I can do it faster.
Yeah.
And a lot more efficient.
It'd be easier for me to just do it than explain how.
Yeah. And you at least talk like a man, and you're, people can understand you. But when you're talking to a woman, when I'm a woman, I go, that thing that's on the dresser, it's yellow, and
the thing with the deal and
and that's how a lot of women talk. And because of my my concussions that I've had, I have a hard time formulating words.
From your yours as a cage fighter?
Yes. Yeah. Karate. They don't do karate. Kick fighting. No, I fell off a bicycle when I was about 11 years old, and I have no memory from 11 down.
Wow.
And then when I was in my
that's significant.
Yeah, when I was in my early 30s, I went down a hill drunk on roller skates and landed on my head.
Oh,
and I had cone head. So
they make helmets.
No, we didn't. That time. We didn't.
That's true.
Yeah, they probably had them, but but nobody wanted to look. Everyone wanted to be cool. And I was drunk. I went straight down instead of going to, and I hit a rock at the end.
You know what? I've got no room to criticize on that, because one of the things I did when I got the all clear was I went skateboarding. I started hitting the skateboard parks again. Which I hadn't done for many years, and I did okay for about the first week, and then the board slipped. I was on a half pipe on this weird experimental skateboard that's got like 14 wheels on it, and it went out from under me, and I broke my elbow. And even to this day, that was October of last year. Even to this day, it's still not 100%.
And does it make noises? Because I broke this one 2 years. Yeah. After I lost my studio, when I went to Detroit, to see my father for his 90th birthday, I hit a what do we call in the back of it? A hitch. It was sticking out. In Michigan, they have big trucks and they have these hitches sticking out. I didn't see it. And I hit it, and I fell, and I broke my arm.
That'll clear your sinuses on it.
Yeah, so I lost my studio and broke my arm, and it still hurts. And they didn't put a cast on it.
Yeah, me either.
It was and my daughter says, "You didn't break it."
Yeah.
I go, no.
Bullshit. I assure you, I broke it.
Yeah, it was so painful.
Yeah.
And and it's still.
Oh man, and that was one of the other.
Is yours straight?
You know what? It took quite a while, but it's gotten to the point where it is. But I beat the fuck out of it. I needed it to work again. But yeah, it's when I broke it. Bam, and it took me 20 minutes or so to sort of gather my shit together, and then I had to drive home in a stick shift car.
Oh my god!
Which was fun. And I didn't go actually to the emergency room until midnight of the same day, and only then because by then the pain was so blinding that I didn't have a choice.
Well, I fell on hot pavement, which is the tarry pavement that they use in the Midwest. Mm-hmm. It was so hot that I could not even put my hand. It was one of those 103 degree with humidity.
Here, have some insult for your injury.
Oh my god! And then my daughter wanted to go shopping for a swimsuit, so I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I realize I'm walking like this, and I can't move my arm.
Yeah,
and it's getting worse.
Yeah. You find you can't straighten it out. You say, well, that's peculiar.
And I said, Babette, I think I need to go to the hospital. There's nothing wrong with your arm. Yeah. No, I need to go to the hospital.
I'm pretty sure there is.
It was pretty. It was pretty.
I was actually surprised because I took most of the hit right on the tailbone. Boom, which hurt. But the arm broke, and it wasn't until I started to realize that A, it hurts a lot, and B, I can't straighten it or bend it beyond. I had a range of motion about like that. Then I started to realize, okay, well, something's not right here.
Yeah, and then when you go to the hospital and then they don't put a cast on it, you look at them like, are you fucking nuts?
Yeah.
Javier in the chat room says the loan shark caught up to her. And then they're talking about roller disco.
You got to pay the vig,
Javier says, I've got sex in exchange for help. No, you didn't. No, you didn't, Javier. Him and his sense of humor. So, any advice you'd like to give to new people that are coming into the lifestyle? Because let's get back on the lifestyle.
Okay, why don't we?
Or life choice.
Yeah, it's that kind of show.
I call it life choice.
Advice for noobs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, practice skills. First of all, that's something that a lot of the things we do are things that can be very, very dangerous. Mm-hmm. And I was always of the opinion that you should not consider doing these things to somebody else until you have put in the time to make sure that you are beyond competent at it. Also, you know, there's a school of thought that you shouldn't do anything to somebody that you haven't first tried on you, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. There are some things that's not practical, but it's a solid a solid beginning for, you know, to build a philosophy around. Find people that are both knowledgeable and ethical and good.
Ethical is important.
Ethical is very important because
very important.
This is a great place for monsters to hide. You know?
Yeah, we can be a named person and we can still be a fucking monster.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is a fantastic place for somebody that's a you know, a violent you know, sociopath. Will find everything they could possibly hope for in our scene. They could. They'll find willing victims, and they'll find praise for doing what they would be doing anyway. And there are people like that, you know. So find good and ethical people. Never stop learning. Never believe your own fucking hype, and never think that you can't learn something new. Always be trying to improve yourself. Always try to get better at what you do and what you are. Never stop studying, never stop learning.
And if you're in the chat room and you're chatting, please, if you have, we're only going to take a couple questions. If you have some questions, you know, please
bring the questions.
Please put. And there's a little bit of a lag, so they'll probably get in a couple of seconds. Right. But while we're waiting for them to ask a question, please ask a question.
Sure.
Of
and I mean anything.
Yeah.
There's this website called. It was called FormSpring. Now they've changed it to Spring or something like that. When a bunch of Russians bought it and ruined it. But basically, it's a place where people can ask you questions. And I have, and this is something that, oh God, this makes me so angry. I have answered about 2,000 questions, and most of them have been funny answers. Some of them, you know, if it's a real heartfelt question, I'll give legit answers. But generally speaking, it's just a way that I keep my wits sharp. And I have answered thousands of these things. And I'm actually considering putting out a book where I just take maybe 1,000 of the best ones, and I compile them, and I do it as an ebook. You know, I sell it for $1 or whatever. Just as a laugh, mainly as a project to see if I can do it. You
can do it as an app.
Yeah, you can. Well, you can sell it, you know, through, you know, all the various ebook sites. The master file where I had all of those things compiled was on my laptop that went pause up on me a couple of months ago. So I have lost that compilation of answers. I've still got the hard drive, and I think I can rescue it, but I'm staring at that going, oh fuck. Okay, well there's one project I'm gonna have to put off.
I know there's computers.
Yeah.
Javier says Entropy's advice applies to everything in life.
Oh, absolutely.
And then ET says for Entropy, was the machine tooling for the Fedora flogger hard?
That was an actually machine. I did that by hand. The Fedora is what he's referring to, and then maybe this is him asking the question. I don't know. I did a set of floggers for somebody who lives down in Mission Viejo. That his handle is Mr. Fedora, and so in the end caps of the knots on the ends of the floggers, I have these hand tooled little carved leather fedoras that are tooled into a flat plate, and that was done by hand using the crudest possible of tools. I think I actually did all the line work with a 5-inch folding ceramic pocket knife, like a ceramic knife, and then I did all the tooling with a hammer and like the 3 leatherworking, you know, hand tooling tools that I own. The ones that ended up on the handle are the 2nd and 3rd versions. I did one as a proof of concept before I even took the commission, just to see if I could do it.
It's because his friend.
Okay. I did one as a proof of concept just to see if it was going to be possible. And once it looked pretty decent, I said, yeah, fuck it, let's do this. And so I did it. And I've actually done one more. I've done 2 sets of floggers now with tooling. Those were the first ones. The second ones, this guy wanted letter A's on it. And I said, well, which one do you want? And I sent him like a file filled with different letter A's. And he picked the most elaborate Old English calligraphy style one. I'm like, fuck, I knew you were going to do that. But I did, and it turned out pretty cool.
So we have a question for you. What is the speed of a swallow? And we don't mean swallowing cum.
I'm assuming you're meaning like an unladen swallow as opposed to and I'm going to need clarification because I need to know if it's going to be an African or a European swallow before I can answer that question. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, God, that's when I'm blonde. Well, I'm not blonde anymore. I'm gray. So one of the questions while we're waiting to see if Javier can elaborate on that statement a little bit or that question.
A little game called Stump This Asshole.
From what you've gone through, the last few years.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask myself the same question.
Okay.
What I went through the last few years
Right.
has humbled me. Has what you've gone through humbled you?
It would be really politic to say yes, but I can't because I never really had much of, I was never one of those ego guys to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So it really hasn't changed me that way, but it certainly changed me in others. I find that I am less likely to put up with bullshit and unimportant things than I used to be. I've gained something of a sense of perspective, and there's a lot more to that story. I mean, there was the story is the way I wrote it on FetLife, the version of it you can read. It was all true. It was all honest, and it all really did happen that way, except for the things that were sort of obviously enhanced for humorous content. But there was really a darker side of this that I didn't really talk about much. There was coming out of it depression. There was apparently, and I discovered this. Ask me how I know. Something like 1/3 of everybody that has this type of cancer comes out of it with some degree of post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, I won that lottery too. I simply couldn't relate to people anymore. Just couldn't connect. Couldn't. It was even more pronounced when I got out of the hospital. When I got out of the hospital, I had this sort of sense that I felt as if I was a ghost. I felt as if everything around me was very real. It wasn't a dissociative thing where I was out of touch with reality. Reality was right fucking there and right in my face, but I didn't feel like I was a part of it anymore, if that makes sense. It's a little abstract.
Yeah, I understand completely.
Part of that is just the psychological effects of all of this. And part of it was when you spend 3 weeks in a hotel, fuck that, in a hospital room, physically, you don't see any further than 20 feet. There's a wall 20 feet away from you at all times. So when I got back out into the world, things were really fucking weird because everything was, I hadn't seen much beyond this small room for 3 weeks. Plus, one of the other things that happened during this was that overnight, before I went to the hospital, something went wrong with my dominant eye, my left eye, where I could not see anything in the center of my vision.
Oh, wow.
Which was another scary thing that was not being addressed while I was in the hospital. That was almost scaring me more than the other things. It wasn't completely gone, but it was kind of like, and the way I described it at the time is, if you're about my age and you remember a video game called Donkey Kong, okay? Do you remember the fireballs in Donkey Kong?
Yeah.
It was the shape of one of those, basically. It was sort of round on the bottom and sort of fuzzy on the top, and it was in my central vision. And at the biggest, if I put my hand out like this, it was the size of my thumbnail in my vision. Everywhere I looked, right in the center. In time, it grew smaller, and it wasn't totally opaque. It was translucent.
Yeah.
And it was red. It started like blood red, and it sort of faded to, like blood does, to sort of a brownish color. And it was translucent. I could kind of see through it, but I couldn't read, for example. And I'd read voraciously. Well, couldn't read because my central vision was gone. If it's this big at this distance, when you bring things close, it's right there. So doing things like driving a car for the first time was scary. Just trying to do anything, in addition to being sick, not being able to see properly, my depth perception was gone, all this kind of stuff. So that was all scary and traumatic, and added to that sense of my unreality in what I recognized was a very real world. Yeah.
Wow, welcome to my world. Because I hibernate. I'm a introvert. People don't realize that because I'm so much out there.
Yeah.
But when I go do my things and then I come home, I stay home.
Right.
And I mean, I fight with myself to even go to the grocery store. I mean, I understand that when you get out into the world after isolating, you're isolated like that. It is so difficult. When I went to New York, I'm walking through the crowd, and I had
great place to be.
I had a panic attack 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I literally had to move next to a building and say, Mel, you're okay.
Yeah.
Because in New York, people don't move for you.
Yeah.
They, you got to move for them.
Yeah, it's a nightmare hellscape. That it's probably the worst possible place on earth. Short of Hong Kong, about the worst place you could have gone.
Yeah, but the whole thing is that when you've gone through the experiences that you've gone through, and what I went through the last 2.5 years. I mean, the reason why I feel very humble is because my ego is gone. Completely. I never had a big one either. I never did all these shows because of an ego.
Yeah.
But my sense of vulnerability was so strong. I was vulnerable to the world. I was no longer that strong person that could handle everything.
Yeah, that's certainly. I mean, certainly that comes. I mean, that there was certainly a big chunk of that with me too, because
you had no control.
I'm Entropy. I'm fucking indestructible until I suddenly was not.
And you have no control over anything.
You lose any sense of haughtiness that you may have had when you're stuck in a hospital for 3 weeks and nurses are wiping your ass. I mean, it's just, you don't have a choice but to accept a certain amount of humility.
Oh yeah, people always they're saying to me, "How come you don't have a slave? How come you're not dating anybody?" And I look at them, I go, "Because I don't want to."
Yeah.
I have to. I can understand when you go through an experience like you went through, what I went through, that you are a shell.
Yeah.
There's nothing in there anymore. There's nothing. There's no ambition in my head. There's emptiness, and it's hard to explain to people.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, it's one of those things that you have to walk the path in order to understand the road. You can understand on an intellectual level. You can say, okay, I can see how that would be the case. I can understand it on a purely intellectual level. But until you've been there, you do not have the visceral sense of what that means, which is why one of the reasons I am harping on this deal so much, because I've been down that road. I've been in that bed. I've had that terrifying experience. And, if I can do something to help somebody else that's in that situation, bet your ass I'm going to do it.
Do you feel that if there was a major earthquake, the water was turned off from Nevada, everything was closed down, everybody was off their meds, the world was in chaos, like Los Angeles was a mess, would you feel you'd still be okay?
Yes.
Because that's how I feel. None of the things that I own matter to me.
Yeah.
Nothing. When I lived out of a suitcase for 2.5 years, everything was in storage. Nothing matters anymore. All that matters is my honor, my integrity, my word, my privateness of being so private. Yeah. Kindness. Kindness is something that I see so much unkindness in our community, in the world. Yeah. And it's like nails on a chalkboard with me. People say. And
I think people are becoming increasingly more and more balkanized.
Yes.
Not only within our scene, but in the world, in our country at large. I think what we see in the scene is just it's like a reflection of, my vocabulary has failed me. It's a scaled version of the world around us anyway.
Yes. Yeah. I don't care anymore.
Yeah. Plus, I've got a lot of post-apocalyptic type of skills, so it may have been not quite exactly the question. I may not have been answering the question you were asking, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. If I lost everything, I would still be okay.
Yeah.
And that's something I didn't know before.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, when I saw homeless people, it really upset me and go, oh my God, I never want to be like that. I almost got there.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for my daughter, I would have been there.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it terrifies you. And if you can't work and you're sick, they're closing down, your phones, they're doing all these things and your family, and I had no family to go to except my daughter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when these things happen, it changes who you are.
Yeah. Or not, perhaps doesn't change it. Perhaps it just brings it into sharper relief.
Well, Javier
it exposes more than changes.
Javier says, as long as I have plenty of ammo, I'll be okay. No.
I got you covered.
And he says we need to go back to the 80s.
You need 5.56 or 6.6 or 6.7 too.
Well, life is constantly in motion. It's constantly changing, and we're constantly changing with it. And I think we make a choice whether we want to go to. I'm not talking about the dark side of kink and fun kink. I'm talking about the dark side of the human form, or I want to stay in the light part, the positive part. And share, joy, laughter, kindness to other people. It's so important to me.
Yeah.
When you get that bad and you get that hopelessness, did you ever feel at a place where you had hopelessness?
More like the opposite.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been a better question to ask if there was ever a sense of hope, because I really didn't. I mean, I was confident that I was going to come through this. I had no doubts about that. I knew it was going to be an unpleasant experience that I would eventually get through and see the end of. But I've never been a real hope kind of guy. I've always thought that hope is kind of the lie your brain tells you in order to get through something.
Well, hope will keep you in a bad relationship because you keep hoping that the person's going to change.
Very true. Very true.
But when you've lost all hope of existing in the world, I mean, it changes the way you look at hopelessness and hope. My hope is different. It's not the same type of hope that I used to have.
Well, traumatic situations sort of strip away the layers. That's why what I'm saying, that it doesn't change who you are so much as expose who you are.
So go to GoFundMe.com.
GoFundMe.com
/
Corals Cancer, CORALSCANCER.
And contribute something.
Kick in a few bucks, man. Doesn't have to be a lot. Just do something.
Javier has a question
Sure.
for you. Entropy, what do you think as the next popular BDSM toy or play? What do you think that we're going to evolve into with our toys and our play?
Well, just, if past is prologue, two things happen. The things that are taboo become the things that are fetishized, more so. So I think as we travel forward and things become more taboo, you're going to find an increase in basically, look around and look at the things that people dislike right now.
I am not doing scat.
Those will become the more taboo things. Also, it hasn't escaped my notice that things that were edgy become adopted by the mainstream. An easy way to illustrate that is through music. There was a time when a band like 9 Inch Nails was pretty edgy and pretty out of the mainstream norm.
He's a musician.
I was a musician.
He still is in his heart.
Actually, I have done, since all this happened, I've actually dipped my toe back in the music. I did a remix for a guy named Schaefer the Dark Lord, who's a what's called a nerdcore rapper who's fucking hilarious. And again, if you go to my FetLife, at the very bottom of the links thing, there's a link to this remix I did. It's kind of cool. It's kind of fun. But what was I saying? Oh, that was a fairly extreme form of music, and it sort of it didn't drift. It's like the mainstream reaches out and toward things that are edgier and sort of draws them into itself. I mean, we were ridiculing 50 Shades earlier, which I believe it or not still have not read. But I walked into a fucking Target store in Mission Viejo, California, the Orange County-est part of Orange County. And on a shelf, I shit thee not, tiny mortals, was 50 Shades of Grey and Anne Rice's Beauty Trilogy on an end cap at a Target in Mission Viejo.
I love it.
So I think it's impossible to really guess where things are going to go, because things have a way of surprising you.
Well, talking about surprising Miss Carrie. Miss Carrie, Piggy has a question.
Yes.
I have a fun question.
Okay. I have a fun answer.
It's actually a question for my human sexuality class this week.
Okay.
Should prostitution be legal?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it should too.
And I say that because...
Gotta pay your taxes.
Because I am a absolutely hardcore capitalist.
Mm-hmm.
I think that anything that is between two consenting adults should be legal.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a fun thing. I have never used a recreational drug in my life. Yet I am in favor of their legalization because that is freedom. If you, Penn Jillette from Penn and Teller put this more succinctly than anybody I've ever heard. If you live in a society where the government can tell you what you can and cannot put in your body, you do not live in a free society.
But they've been doing that since the 50s. I mean, it started out with seatbelts.
Yeah.
They made everybody wear seatbelts.
And
we all conformed. And then they kept passing other laws and other things, taking away a lot of our freedom. That's what our government has done.
Absolutely.
Oh, we're going to get into politics. You know what?
I'll go.
We've only got 4 minutes to go, and we're going to be.
Say jump, Froggy.
at 2 hours of the show. This is amazing. E.T. said, I saw the same thing at Lakewood. We're talking about the books.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's
so, I mean, you know, it is undeniable that the Beauty Trilogy, whatever you think of it in terms of, you know, content or in terms of value, it is undeniable that that is some pretty fucking edgy shit to be finding at a Target store, you know? This is not an edgy kind of chain. This is a fairly mainstream, you know, I can't think of anything more mainstream other than perhaps Walmart, you know?
Javier, you're fucking nuts.
What do you say?
I paid to have sex with Rev Mel, me and a goat, and the goat wanted a refund. Hey, Javier, love you. I love you, but you make me sick. Yes. I think
Where does a goat carry its wallet? Did you front it the money? How does that work exactly? Was it a consenting goat?
Going, oh my, laughing out loud. I mean, Javier, they're all laughing in the chat room because he always brings some joy. That's why he's got to get his show.
He brings
back.
some joy.
Joy. Yeah. Oh no, that's a lamb. That's a lamb. So any other burning questions in the chat room? Because, you know,
or smoldering questions.
Yeah, it's getting really hot in here. It's not because we're bringing the air conditioner is off and the doors are off. The heat from the computer system.
We're in a bunker, really.
Yeah, we're in a bunker. Yeah, it's as bunker as you can get. Yeah. You know, when I turn
Hence the question earlier about.
You know, when I turn off the lights in here, it's completely dark because everything is sealed.
Because there's no wind.
Yeah, the windows are all sealed. Nice. Everything is sealed. So, you know, I could.
It's like being in a hotel constantly.
Yeah.
They've got the blackout curtains.
Yeah, it definitely is.
You have no idea what time it is, and so you.
Definitely. Yeah. So you got to come out and play.
I probably ought to.
We have Javier's birthday. Come in as his guest. New Year's Eve. Come in as my guest to the Lear Side. Bring someone with you. You both come in as my guest. Come and play, and we'll get the word out that you're going to play, and we'll have all the people there for you.
And the masses will assemble, I'm sure.
They will. They will.
It's kind of funny when I was sort of promoting this. In fact, if you go to my FetLife page, I think I mentioned this.
You put a big thing on it.
I did. Yeah. I do. Anytime I do something, I sort of listed, okay, here's the shit I'm up to now. But there was a joke on there about, come find out if Entropy is still relevant. And, you know, I really don't know.
So
I have no idea if I am or not.
Are you relevant?
I don't know.
Okay, in the chat room.
I've done things in the past that were relevant. Am I currently?
Okay, in the chat room.
Do I care?
Is Entropy relevant?
Am I relevant? There's a question for you, where it's a give and take thing. You ask me questions about goats, and I ask you questions about relevance.
Oh, he says, come to the Conquest party, which is really cool. I mean,
do I have to wear a conquistador helmet, or is that
you have to wear
optional
a suit.
Part of the dress code? Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think I have a suit. I don't know if it still fits.
A suit and a tie.
That was one of the other sort of horrible things about this is that one of the things that happens when you're in chemo is that you lose weight because all your food tastes like you licked a 9-volt battery's ass, and so food is unpalatable and you're kind of constantly sick. But I was making a conscious effort to eat a lot because I knew that if chemo didn't work and if radiation didn't work, the next step was infinitely worse. It was a stem cell transplant, which I discussed in the thing I wrote, where they basically demolish your immune system with massive doses of chemo. And I knew that if that was going to happen, I was going to probably drop another 50 pounds in the hospital again. So I started making sure every day that I was eating. And unfortunately, it means that I gained all the 40 pounds that I lost in the hospital and then some back. And now it's time to sort of shed all that and get back to back in shape, because that's one of the. You look great. I really don't.
You look really good. I didn't know what to expect when you walked through that door. As far as relevantly, Perry said,
We'll fix that in post.
Perry, yeah, she said, yes, yes, yes. And then,
Well, thank you.
And then Javier said, bring Rev Mel, and I will bring the goat. Well, you guys, it's pretty warm in here, and what we're going to be doing, if you've missed out on the beginning, my guy that was going to run my board today was sick, wasn't able to make it, so I'm going to make an exit to turn off the show, and Entropy will take us out.
Okay.
And I want to thank you so much for coming.
Well, thanks for having me.
This has been wonderful.
It was fun. It's always fun.
Yeah, and I want to thank everyone for watching, at least for the last 2 hours. You guys have been in here watching. This is the longest show that we've done since we've been back on the air.
Because I won't shut the fuck up.
No, it's because we don't want you to leave. No, we're enjoying this. But you've been watching the Rev Mel Show on TSRnetwork.com, where real people talk about real sex with really kinky people. And it's where...
With really possibly relevant people.
Yeah, you can see what they wrote. And it's where we are changing the world one vanilla at a time. And I'm going to make an exit. And he's going, yeah, we'll do that.
Let's just throw that up there for a moment. This has been the Entropy Show. Ignore that woman behind the curtain. So go here, get money, give to this person. That's my message for you today. My dynamic message for the youth of today. Break up your goddamn wallets and help somebody, one of ours, that's in need. And thanks for watching. I mean, I always enjoy doing this, and it's fun to get a chance to talk to all you guys, even if it is about fucking goats. So on that note, bye for now. Live good, die fast, and leave a young looking corpse. This is the part where I'm just going to freeze frame to make it look like I'm